Awesome. So you should have just got the notification that it'll be recorded. And in addition, if it helps you to have closed captioning on, there is an option. We've enabled that for live transcript. It's along your toolbar. You can opt in by asking it to show subtitles so you can read along with our unscripted script. But we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to welcome everybody to our town hall. Thank you so much for coming in our Zoom format. We miss everybody. I love the comments in the chat, and we're excited to share with you what we've been up to. We'd like to start with an important acknowledgement here. I'm going to pass it over to Kay, who's going to provide us with the land acknowledgement for the land that our club is on and that we're all on.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Hopefully everyone here is in Seattle, which makes you, like us, on the traditional lands of the first people of Seattle. In our case, the Duwamish people, our neighbors, who present and past, we honor with gratitude, and the land itself as well. And we also want to thank and acknowledge the tribe who's reached out to us during this difficult time by making a fiscal donation to our rebuilding fund and just being there for us as well as neighbors. And we're so honored and thankful for your help. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Kay. All right, we'll go ahead and get into our agenda here. So I'm just going to give us a quick overview of what we would like to cover today. All right, so we're just going to start with introductions. I think most of you know us, but not everyone does. So we'd like to take an opportunity to introduce our board members as well as our club manager. And then we have a special presentation that Kay is going to bring to us about our building through the ages. And then we'll elaborate a little more about the fire, the details we know about it, and the response we got from our insurance company. And then we'll go into the interim plan. While the rebuild is anticipated to take a while, so what we plan on doing with the space in the meantime. And then we will transition on to share with you kind of our plan to rebuild. And how we plan on getting to the point where we can actually begin construction, and that will involve community input. And then also an opportunity on how you can help. And then we'd like to leave plenty of time at the end for some Q&A. Sorry about that. The four-legged board member. All right, so we're going to start with introductions of our board. So I'm going to take this off sharing here so you can see our lovely mugs. All right, so I'll start. My name is Nicole Mazza. I'm currently have the honor of being the board president. I had to think about it. I think I've been president since about 2017. I took the role over from Rhonda Smith. I've been involved with the club in some way or shape since my husband and I moved here in 2008, and started with HPAC, and yeah, I'm hooked for life. So anyways, I'm the president. I'm going to pass it off next to Christy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christy Joshram. I'm the vice president. Currently, I've been the vice president as long as Nicole has been the president. We're a little tag team. I honestly cannot think of how long I've been at the club. It feels maybe 10 years or 1,000, but I'm still here. So.
All right, Shannon's next.
All right, hi, I'm Shannon Harris. I'm the treasurer. I've been the treasurer in training. Julie Schiffling was the treasurer before me, but I've been the treasurer for about 2 years, and then a board member prior to that for 2 years. And the math doesn't always add up when you're talking about the club. I moved into the neighborhood in 2016. A friend of mine who lived up north told me about this amazing, fun wine event, the Uncorked fundraiser. She told me to get involved in that. And so I volunteered for Forks as soon as I moved into the neighborhood and felt immediately plugged in to HPIC, and then got involved with volunteering on the board. So I'm happy to be here and happy to be serving our community.
Awesome. Gretchen's next. You out there, Gretchen? Maybe on mute?
Gretchen, you have to unmute, sorry.
Better? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyhow, I'm Gretchen Hayden. I'm the secretary. I have been since Christy and Nicole became president, vice president. I have also served as vice president. I have been involved with the club and in the board for at least 15 years. I go back to the Riverview Council, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's, you know, it's just such an honor to be a part of it. Lived here 20 years.
All right. And next we have Kay.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kirkpatrick. I'm a trustee at the club. That means I'm a person that cleans up stuff and does things. And I've been doing it a long time. I also served as a treasurer for a while, a long time ago, but I'm way more hands-on. And I've lived in the neighborhood with my husband here, Peter, since about 2000. I think we got involved in the club about 5 years after that. Okay, thanks. Thanks for coming.
All right, Julie's next. Rhonda, you can unmute her. All right, let's go to Nikki.
Hi, I'm Nikki Jostel. I've lived in the neighborhood about 30 years. I raised my daughter here. She recently moved back and she's living with us. It's wonderful. I've been involved with the club since I can't even remember when. I just put on the 3 garage sales that happened this summer. Thank you very much for coming out and supporting those. I really appreciate it. And also I used to cook for Corner Bar and I've done a heck of a lot more too. I'm a trustee.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think I'm not muted anymore.
You're good.
Okay, I'm Julie Schickling, and I'm sorry I lost my screen for a minute there, but I've been involved with the club since, boy, I don't know, a long time ago. And I would sit in the back of the room when the elders were running things way back when. Anyway, I have served as the secretary and the treasurer, and I'm now a trustee. And one of the things that I focus on is grant writing. So thank you all for coming.
All right, and next we have Billy Stopper.
Hi, everybody. Thanks
Yep.
for showing up, everyone. So I have no video right now, but my wife and I moved into the neighborhood in the summer of 2005, and we kind of stumbled upon the club that summer of 2005, and it was the same thing as Julie said. It was all run by Robert's Rule of Engagement with all the octogenarians. I just found it was fascinating, and it was like $5 to join or something like that, or $10 to join. So we joined right away. We've been members ever since and have been involved in some form or fashion ever since then. So about 16 years now. But I've been a trustee since about same thing, I guess, right around when Rhonda was president. So 2016 or 17 or something like that. So anyways, yeah, here we are.
All right.
Hi, I'm Sean Mazza, Nicole's husband, and I've been involved as long as she has. And I have such a passion for the club and the relationships I've formed there, and just the lifelong friendships that I've made as a result of this institution and these wonderful people. So I'm just blessed to be a part of it. I'm a trustee.
All right, and one trustee that couldn't make it here tonight is Billy Markham. He's one of our trustees that have really been leading the renovation effort, so very involved, but he was not able to make it with us tonight. And then in addition to our board members, we have another important role at our club, another part of the board family here, and that is our club manager, who is Odetta, and I'd like to pass it over to her for an introduction.
Oh, hi, everybody. Thank you, Nicole. It's great to see all these wonderful faces at the meeting tonight. Thanks, everyone, for coming. My name is Odetta Owen Boudreau, and I started, I guess I'm the fledgling member. I started in 2017. That's part of why I like HPIC, is I get to be the youngest, even though I'm not. But yeah, I started in 2017 as club manager, and I'm officially, I think, the queen of the pivot is what I've become at HPIC, because when COVID happened and we couldn't rent out the club, then I got to be the coordinator for all the food distribution that we did for over a year. And is that right? Yeah. And that was amazing. And now I'm the person that puts all the posts up on your Facebook page and says what's going on at the club. And I'm doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes that I hope will be helpful to the board, as well as to all the volunteers that we're looking forward to welcoming, and all the new members that we're going to be welcoming also as we get the building back up and running. So my family and I have been here since 2015. We love Highland Park and we love HPIC, and appreciate all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Odetta. And that's just our official group. We have plenty of more of unofficial, unsanctioned, super volunteers, and stewards of the club. We'll thank them towards the end. But this really is a community effort of a lot of volunteers that put a lot of love, sweat, and tears into the club. So we are excited to get into the content of the rest of this meeting. I will ask that people hold their questions to the end, just because Zoom is a little hard with extra chatter. But our intention is to leave plenty of time at the end to hear people's thoughts and questions and so forth. So without further ado, we're going to pass it over to Kay, who is going to start us with a really beautiful presentation on the building through the years. One of the unintended blessings of the fire is the opportunity to rescue our history from the ashes here. Kay and some other volunteers have painstakingly pulled volumes of artifacts out of the club and are lovingly restoring them. So I just had to give that shout out to Kay and the other behind the scenes folks that are really helping with that. I'm excited to pass the ball to Kay to share a special presentation on the building through the ages.
Hi, thanks, Nicole. This is sort of exciting, and I'm gonna go to, let's see, I want to go, that's number 2. Share that big old screen. And hopefully I can't tell if we're in the screen now. Can someone just yell if we are?
Yep, we can see it, but we see the double side by side, so you need to switch that view.
Sorry? Oh, what?
It's like showing us a slide and then what's next. There you go. Here we go.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. Sorry about that. As you can see, we're novice Zoomers, and not the professional ones, but we're volunteers and we're heartfelt. Okay, I'm going to start off first by reflecting a little bit about the history of this building. To me, and to I think a lot of people, the club is really more about the people, but yet it's held within this physical space, right? And hold on just a second, I want to get ready here. This portion of our presentation is going to talk about its history and how it's become and been a gathering place and focal point for the Highland Park and Riverview area. We've held this property in stewardship since 1919. The first physical version of the building was completed in 1924. When I look at our building, the first thing I think of is our native poet, Richard Hugo. And in one of his poems, he writes this line: "I walked here up the long hill from the river where success is unpretentious commerce. Fresh paint gleaming yellow on the meeting hall peels before it dries." This is our building in 1937. The late 30s brought the Depression to the area, and the WPA, the club hosted a sewing circle. Meanwhile, the Highland Park Elementary School playground and the landslides on West Marginal were all taken care of by WPA volunteers trying to make it through the hard times of the Depression. You can see the building and then the small little old barbershop next to it at the time. Here's the interior in the 1940s. Things were quiet at that time, not a lot of minutes in the files. I think everybody was focused on the war. A lot of folks worked at Boeing. A lot of people were overseas in the various military efforts of the country at the time. But they all came back home from the war. A lot of young couples found each other and settled in here in Highland Park, Riverview to raise their families. You can see that one of the things they did was remove that pillar. So I'm sort of waving my little mouse around that was in the middle of the dance floor so that they would have more room to have dances, which led to some later consequences, which we'll see. Okay. Here's our building in 1963. You can see it was expanded to the west side, adding more room and also changing the bathroom layout inside. The members kept up maintenance on the hall with work parties and held neighborhood cleanups as well as dances. The club sponsored Girl Scouts, baseball teams, and contestants in the Miss White Center pageant. That's pretty dated, right? As well as continuing to do outreach to the city on behalf of the neighborhood and regional concerns. This is a neighborhood cleanup. People are all bringing their stuff to haul off. That's happened before. Here's a typical 1973 work party where the guys all got together to pave the parking lot. I think that's a Rainier beer, maybe, in one of our members' hands here. They had acquired this land at the time, so they went ahead and paved it. Fortunately, one of our members worked for the Department of Transportation and knew how to operate a steamroller. There he is. And the club also got a new paint job on the outside. One of our many uses during that period was rented to the elections commissions as a polling place. This is election day in February of 1977. Still a really simple structure. But lots of ambitions in the 80s. They sold bonds to each other to raise funds to do a second expansion, which were later paid off by bingo rental revenues. So you can see here where the foundations are being pulled out for the next level of expansion. And here we see the form of the club as we probably all think of it today taking shape, basically wrapping around the earlier section of the building and then throwing up a couple of peaks on the roof and a ceiling, adding more to the banquet hall side of the building. Issues from Southwest Holden traffic have been with us for many years. This is 1985. Highland Park HPIC versus car went all the way into the interior of the building. 1987, it was time for a new dance floor inside. This has been sanded down and refinished at least twice that we know of after the initial installation, which is about at its recommended lifetime maximum. Before it would have to be replaced anyway. Here we are in 1988, and a lot of people are probably familiar with this look of the club. You can still see some of the siding repairs there on the Holden side are still visible. Meanwhile, inside things were kind of progressing, aging. We learned how buildings with multiple roof lines and strange connections on the roof can lead to internal difficulties. This is HPIC versus the heavy winter rains that year in 1993. Then things kind of chug along under their own steam, and we come to some new understandings about how best practices for managing urban water and made some changes to the property in 2015. One was adding 2 rain gardens through the Rain Rise program. And then in 2016, a gigantic project to depave all that parking. So you remember that guy on the steamroller and the folks digging the catch basins. This is the next expression of that. Of course, then we also started working with Solarize Seattle, and were able to get a complimentary solar installation on the roof and act as a demonstration site for a sort of an energy efficiency program. This was in 2016. Later in 2016, we also had another unfortunate incident with disaster, HPEC versus wind, gravity, time, and the incorrect fasteners used on the original eyebrow, we call it. Disaster was narrowly averted since no one was on the property when the eyebrow fell off, but it was quite a shocker to us, and really made us look at the mortality of the building in general, I think. Here's 2016, working with local contractors to re-envision the profile, kind of changing that, got rid of all that eyebrow and tucked it back in. Then in 2017, things were picking up, and it was a great time to be able to get out and about and be in the courtyard. And so in the interest of safety, a bunch of volunteers got together and put together this fence and lighting that we've enjoyed up till the present time. Here's a great shot of some folks gathering for a corner bar. Really shows the building off, and it's kind of what we would call its best look to date. The shot, interestingly, was taken from the top of the new townhomes across 12th. You can see around the club over the years how the properties have grown in and up around us, which makes preserving this space, I think, even more imperative for the community. This was one of the founding reasons that some people got involved here, was the desire to keep this property in the hands of the community and not turn it into residential, private residential neighborhood sort of structures. So if you remember that pillar that they took out in the 1950s, slowly and surely, we found that the beam inside was failing, and we had to do something about that. And COVID closed the building down, so we were able to get this giant steel beam put in by Midas Contracting, thanks to For Culture helping with a grant. This was hopefully a once in a lifetime opportunity to address this problem, which unfortunately was rolled into the second year. So in 2021, we really sort of looked at that ceiling and thought about it and decided to make a move and really address the inside of the building and make it into a more lofty place to enjoy. And we were in the process of doing that. Everything was almost done, and they were able to do it all and still keep the food programming running on the other side, which was really terrific for the neighborhood. And then June 25, 2021, fire hits the hall. And this was one of the final lines in that poem. I think of Dumars sadly because a dance hall burned. And that's from Richard Hugo's poem, Why I Think of Dumars Sadly. So here I'm going to end my slideshow for now and pass the screen off to somebody else. But I hope you enjoyed that little look at history with HPEC.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that, Kay. That was just really great to see the photos from throughout the years, and also how you tied it, to local poets and our local history. So thank you so much for that. I'm trying to navigate. Sorry. Okay. All right. So just a little more details. Here's, about the fire. I'm sure if anyone's read the blog or our newsletters, we've shared most of the details that we know at this time. But, it's June 25th in the wee hours of the morning. The fire started. Evidence shows that it started along the alley side. There's a little alcove there for our back door. While the cause is ruled undetermined, both the insurance company and the fire chief said that it was started in that alcove side, but it wasn't clear if it was accidental or intentional. we're going to assume it was accidental, that nobody would want to harm, our community house. But the extent of the fire damage really varies drastically, from the area that it started to the other side of the building. So the most extensive, of course, was in that northeast corner along the alley. So damage all the way from the footings under the floor, all the way up to the ceiling, where you can see in that right photo, you can see, the sunlight streaming down where the roof was burned. As you move towards, kind of the midsection of the building, there's again some serious damage, some structural damage, and definitely smoke damage. And then as you got to where we were hosting the dining room side where the food program was being hosted, it was just extensive smoke damage throughout. There isn't much to salvage on the interior. And I think there's one kind of, just following on Kay's presentation where you saw that new structural beam put in, that was a big deal for us, to find the time to install that beam. And what was reported to us is our, the fire department showed up in response to the fire. That beam was glowing red, and it is thought that it was, that beam that kept the entire roof structure from collapsing. So it was a pillar of strength for us in the building during that time. All right, so next, we'd like to share a little bit more about what we know with the fire insurance. I'm going to pass it over to our treasurer, Shannon, who has been working the details of that. Off to you, Shannon.
Great. Yeah, so luckily we did have fire insurance for the building. The coverages that we had were $750,000 for the actual building itself, $50,000 for loss of income. But that note there is just saying that the insurance company is claiming that because of COVID, we may not have had much income. So we're going to claim as much of that as we possibly can. And then we had another $20,000 for personal property. And the way that they describe that is anything, if we had picked up the club and shook it, turned it upside down and shook it, the personal property is anything that would have fallen out. And we did have some volunteers, tools and equipment in the building because of the ongoing internal restoration that was happening. So we'll be paying people back who lost property in the fire, and then use whatever we have left over to replace items that were damaged. So after the insurance company assessed the damage, they looked at an appraisal, or they created an appraisal of the building because the coverages, the $750,000 is more what they believe the entire building is worth. And so they did the appraisal and appraised the building for $480,000. They've provided that money to us and to the club. And if we decided not to rebuild, restore the building, that's as much as we would get. But as we work on our restoration plan, then we can claim up to the $750,000 for the rebuild project. We are going to be seeking other funding. I think there's a chance for me to talk about that a little bit later, but that's kind of the nuts and the bolts of the finances from the insurance side.
Great, thank you so much, Shannon. And while we have been focused on the fire, we have also been exploring ways for us to still be a presence in the community. How can we use the space that we have available to still be a gathering place? And so I'm going to pass it off to Julie, who's going to walk us through a plan for our outdoor space. Julie, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was talking a whole bunch. So anyway, here we are with without a building and with a courtyard and a parking lot and some leftover grant money. Because all of our volunteers had worked so hard prepping that we had spent hardly any money of the grant. So we contacted the Department of Neighborhoods to ask if we could repurpose this grant, which is a very unusual request. But our project manager, Juan Martinez, helped us figure it out, and he advocated for us. And we got that grant redirected to be able to purchase some of these things that you see here so that we can continue to host gatherings outside. So we're very thankful that we were able to repurpose that grant. And there was another part of that grant that Shannon will talk about later also that has to do with working on our organizational structure. And that will be very helpful too, because we are definitely going to another level in the future. So thank you.
All right. And now we're going to talk about what we plan on doing as we rebuild, you know, the rebuild plan for HPIC, which we're calling HPIC 2.0. So Kay's going to walk us through the details of that plan.
Well, right now we're sort of at the now button, which is this groovy little graphic here. So first we're still sort of, is someone, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good, sorry. There was some, uh-oh, go back.
Yep.
There it is. Okay, super cute. So we're still doing structural engineering and assessing sort of if there's parts that need to be saved, should they be saved? Who knows, right? Is it better? We've been in consultation with some building professionals in our membership. Really, fortunately, we are well endowed with some really great in-house talent that we're hoping to capitalize on. And trying to decide whether we should try to save part of the structure, take down the whole thing, redo the thing. So this is our next step, is this step here, which is identifying an architect design team kind of component so we can get some professional help here. Because, you know, I'm just a trustee. I know how to fix up stuff, but I'm not a designer of space. I'm more of a user of space. So we need some professionals on that team, and we're working on that right now. And then our plan, go back, please. Our plan is to go, thank you. Go back. Our plan is to engage again with the community, that's y'all and everybody else that we can find in the neighborhood when we're out walking around, when we're doing stuff, or also intentionally, we'd like to have 3 to 4 small meetups perhaps in the temporary space that Julie referred to at the building, perhaps engaging at the corner store, or just having a couple of Zoom meetings like this for folks that are more comfortable with Zoom, where we will be able to have design team folks talk to us, and people will be able to sort of help inform us kind of what do we want to do? Like what does the next building look like? What's the next 100 years? You know, we're like in this weird silver lining place right now, I feel. We were looking at a building earlier that had been certainly built up and beloved by all, but not really very intentionally. I mean, it was more like kind of, oh, we'll stick something on here, we'll add another room here, very piecemeal, right? So here's suddenly an opportunity to build with intention and create really a unified vision for the neighborhood and learn from some of the past mistakes with the previous building. Don't put in giant troughs on the roof that will just collect rainwater for us, things like that. Also the community will need to think, what do we want to continue using the building for? You know, we did a charrette like this in 2015. I think a lot of you may have been at it, or at least some of you, with some architects from NBBJ, and you know, really tried to talk kind of bring up kind of what do we want to do in the building? What are we trying to say? Like kind of what does the community need this building for going forward? So we need to revisit that conversation. These are new times. We have new folks and new faces in the community who weren't in that previous conversation and have useful and helpful opinions. And also we have this thing called COVID, which we have all been living through and has changed a lot of patterns. There's people now that are more in the neighborhood. Maybe we need the building to somehow be more engaging during more of its time that it's there. Maybe we need to rethink of our mutual aid program, which was really, really vital during COVID, getting food out to all the kids in our Title I schools. You know, how do we continue to be a nurturing place, and how can the building help support that? So those are all just ideas I'm throwing out there for you guys to think about. And then, you know, also considering, there's also some other considerations too, which someone I was speaking to, a designer last week, who said, you know, do people need to have the thing back that was there? Like, does it need to look like it used to look like, right? Does it have to be that little hall on the hill? You know, what's its physical manifestation need to be for our community? People can think on that. You don't have to answer tonight, but you'll need to answer shortly because we got to get moving. We got to get this thing built, right? So we'll get all those ideas. The board will sit down. We'll actually look at the money. You know, there's some hope that we can engage with some more money from other sources in the city. We're trying to work on that. I don't know if someone else is going to talk about that, but then we need to finalize that design and get it into permitting. So once we have drawings, then we can hire a contractor and we can just get going and build it. I expect that the building itself will be the shortest part of the process. So it's the thinking and things like that will take time. So everyone just be considering what you think our role should be as a home for community within the neighborhood, and how we continue to be stewards of this joint space together. That's my plea. I think that's the end of what I was going to say. So we'll be having those sessions, and just keep, we'll send out a lot of notice about those, so folks will have opportunities to do it on their own schedule. Okay, thanks.
All right. While a big part of our focus is on the building and the physical space, we're taking this opportunity to assess not just the physical structure, but also our board structure. This is an opportunity for us to re-envision how we're set up for success to meet the needs of our community for the next 100 years. So we've been putting some thought into that, and Shannon is going to share with us what we've been working on in this area.
All right, thanks, Nicole. And thanks, Kay, for setting that great context. As Kay's presentation has shown, the club has been used for many purposes over the years. And one of the key purposes of the board has always been trustee and stewardship over the building. And so a lot of time of the board is spent managing the building, the things that go wrong, the things that need to be updated. And so we put a lot of effort into maintaining the structure and keeping it usable. But that means that a lot of the activities that the club offers, whether it's corner bar or a plant exchange or the garage sales or the harvest dinner or the holiday bazaar, all of those things are organized by volunteers, and we don't necessarily have those roles defined on the board. So we are looking at a way to restructure the board to make sure that we are doing everything we can to be a inclusive, diverse, and socially just organization, and then also to make sure that we are sustainable as a board and as an organization. And so we have been talking this through as a board and reached out to 501 Commons. We had worked with a consultant with 501 Commons a number of years ago. Her name's Shirley. I think she's actually on the call if she wants to say hello.
Yeah, I'm here. Glad to meet up with you guys again.
Great. It's great to see you and to meet you for the first time for me. So she helped us transition from a membership organization to a charitable organization about, I think, six or seven, maybe longer ago, years ago. And so we've asked 501 Commons to engage with us again, and they very graciously are donating consultant time to this effort. We'll be putting in some money. We'll be using some grant funds for this so that we can actually look at the structure of the board, refresh the mission, and do these community engagement sessions to make sure that we are creating both a facility structure as well as a board structure and an organizational structure that will serve the neighborhood in the long term. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Nicole, feel free to add anything.
Yes, I realized I had the wrong slide up during that part, so sorry about that. But we can go ahead and transition to the different ways that people can help and get involved. And also I'll reshare again here, Shannon, if you kind of want to walk us through that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to. So at this point, we want to invite everyone to get involved. There's multiple ways to get involved. First is get involved in the discussions. So as we've mentioned, there's going to be a series of community engagement conversations to get your input into what the club needs to provide for our neighborhood and our community now. And we're also interested in your ideas for just kind of, if you have ideas on how we can enlist more volunteers and help us with our board structure conversations, we'll be engaging you in those conversations as well. We have monthly board meetings and those are open. So if you check our website, you can get links or find the location of our board meetings. We've been doing those outside primarily. Now that it's getting cold, we may transition back to Zoom to keep everyone safe. And then another way that you can get involved, and we've gotten a lot of community support, financial support so far, is to continue to donate to our rebuilding fund. We really appreciate everyone's donations to help us. And we appreciate all of the donations we got back in May when we were doing our decanted fundraiser to restore the building, the inside of the building. So if anyone has additional funds that they can donate, we will be very transparent about the financial situation and kind of the money that we need to rebuild once we have the art design finished. So we'll be transparent there, and we'll likely need to have a capital campaign to get additional funds beyond what the insurance company will give us to create the building that the community needs. And then this is a really great time to become a member. As I mentioned, Shirley helped us move from a membership organization to a charitable organization. And in our roots, we are still a membership organization for the Highland Park and Riverview and South Delridge neighborhoods. So membership dues, if we can increase our membership dues, that actually provides some sustainable operating funds for us, which may increase our capacity to provide more programming for the community. And members have an opportunity to vote on decisions about the programming and the building. So during our community input sessions, we'll be getting input from everyone and anyone who has an idea that they would like to put forward. When it comes to decision making, there will be decisions that are made by our members. So if you aren't a member currently, this is a great time to become a member and have that additional decision making ability. And then finally, volunteering. So as you've probably heard enough, we are a volunteer-run organization. Over the next 12 to 18 months, as we build Little HPIC, will have lots of opportunity for people to engage in helping us set up that outdoor facility for people to come and gather. And then once we have that set up, we'll have opportunities for volunteers to engage in helping us put on events. Depending on how quickly we can get that up, we may be able to hold some markets. We may be able to have a silent disco. We may be able to do something with music. The possibilities are not quite endless, but there's a lot of them. And we'd love to hear your ideas on how we could use that outdoor space as well. Another thing that we can always use help with is stewards for the building. So now that the building isn't being used as much, there's some additional transient activity. And so if you can just keep an eye on the building, and if you see anything amiss, send an email to hpic1919@gmail, then we can address anything that happens with the building. And if you're comfortable, no, you don't need to get involved in interacting with anyone, but just let us know if you do see anything that seems to be amiss as you're walking by. And running a capital campaign. So we're going to be doing a lot of fundraising over the next 12 to 18 months. And if you have fundraising in your DNA, please, please, please reach out to us. We could really use some additional assistance there. So lots of ways to get involved. Please come to our future community engagement sessions, because we really want to hear your ideas and how we can create a building and an organization that will work for you. That will work for us.
All right.
I just want to clarify that. So that'll work for us, because this is really our building. And I was contemplating this earlier today, that it's so rare to have an asset like this that is wholly owned by the community. This is something that is ours and ours collectively. It's not the board's. It is the memberships technically, but the more anyone can become a member, and once you're a member, that is your building. And so I just, like, even though the board is made up of committed volunteers who put in a lot of time and effort, we have a lot of volunteers who have put in so much heart and soul and tears into the club. But this is still owned by us collectively. And so I just hope that people will feel that sense of ownership and come together as we make decisions about the future of the.
Thanks so much, Shannon. We're just going to close on sharing some fun photos of what we've been up to. You know, even though we're not gathering in the space, we're still very busy. We got some great, we've had 3 wonderful garage sales that Nikki Jostel planned and coordinated. Really great response from the community, and it was a successful fundraising event for us. And it was so great to see people walking around wearing their Highland Park gear here, which I love. Just a little plug here, you can get your our Highland Park gear. Megan and Kevin have graciously offered to sell at the corner store, so it's available for sale. And we have hoodies and kids sizes and more of our traditional shirts, the Highland Park vintage classic logo here, that will be are going to be hitting their store fairly soon, just in time for the holidays. So we've had still found a way to be a presence in the community, but a really great workshop, kind of planning the rebuild and the timeline that Kay walked us through. We're grateful to the Senior Center of West Seattle, who graciously offered to host our workshop there and offered their space to us for future needs, since we don't have a place of our own right now. So really appreciative for them. In the meantime, our super volunteers here have put up a temporary power pole so we can continue to get power to the building to power little HPIC. And we also had to put up a new mailbox here since the other one is unaccessible because it's in the building. And this is a photo on the bottom right, is one of our first board meetings after the fire. Just gathering at the space at the club, and we've been pretty creative with our board meetings that we've held since. So I just want to share kind of what we've been up to. We've also, working with Odetta, have, as she mentioned, the Queen of Pivots transitioned her role again since the food program came to an end as part of as a consequence of this fire. So Odetta has stepped up to help us not only with our social media campaign, but helping us to build out some important roles that we've really wanted to focus on. but haven't always had the bandwidth to do. So she's helping us to build out our volunteer coordinator role as well as our membership management role. So really excited for more great things to come around that. And we just want to acknowledge the city agencies and the many advocacy groups who've expressed their concerns and support. We've held a meeting with council member Lisa Herbold, who has reached out to us a couple of times, and was able to meet with her last week and just discuss, just get some general discussions from her or suggestions from her, and especially as they go into their budget planning cycle. SDOT, Morgan Junction, the West Seattle Chamber of Commerce has been really great. Their board graciously reached out and paid our membership so we can continue to be members of the chamber. And we also reached out to them when we were looking for a club or a space to hold our workshop, and they, within a day found us a location. So really grateful for their support. Of course, the Duwamish tribe, which Kay gave acknowledgement to at the beginning, just a huge amount of gratitude for their very, very generous gift. And we look forward to being able to pay tribute to them some way as we envision the new space. Of course, HPAC, our sister organization that walks side by side with HPIC to represent our community. Endless support there. We're definitely a partnership. And again, just the corner store, Megan and Kevin, they've created a special drink for us, and and all donated proceeds of that drink to the club. Just endless amounts of support. And then every volunteer, every hug, every expression of support that we've received in so many ways, and the donations and everything, we're just really grateful. And we have a lot of unofficial stewards of the building, the people that just have a passion for helping us make it better. Our folks that were putting in so much with all the volunteer time to rebuild, like Greg Winger and Franco Gamboa, and then also previous board members that just can't pull away from the strong force that is HPIC, like Rhonda, of course. So just thankful to everybody who has showed support through this event that we will definitely overcome. And so I just wanted to, before we open it for Q&A, I just wanted to share this amazing artifact that Kay came across as she was, going through the archives from the ashes. And this is a meeting minutes or a meeting newsletter. And Kate or somebody, I couldn't remember the year. If you could drop it in the chat window, that would be great. But I just love this poem that they had included in the newsletter. And I'm going to take this moment to read it to you. It says, think this over. Are you an active member, the kind that would be missed? Or are you just contented that your name is on the list? Do you attend the meetings and mingle with the flock? Or do you stay outside to criticize and knock? Do you take an active part to help the work along? Or are you merely satisfied only to belong? Think this over, member. You know right from wrong. Are you an active member or do you just belong? I leave that with you. I think it's just so, I don't know, it's endearing for sure. And at this time, that concludes the information that we wanted to share, and we will go ahead and open it up for questions and comments. And Rhonda, if you could, well, I guess people can come off mute and share their ask their questions. And I'm looking at the chat, and yes, I missed some very key people, and they're on my list. The West Seattle blog, who has endlessly covered us. And some of our longtime trustees like Blair Johnson. So please forgive me for some of my misses, but what questions do you have? Could we take the slide down during the Q&A period so folks can actually maybe see more? People can raise their hand if they need to. Yes, 100%. Don't everybody talk at one time. Tasha, you can get your shirts right down there at the corner store.
Oh, there's my That's my family.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Do you know, are you going to repair the building or are you going to replace it? Is it going to be the same size or is it going to be bigger? Do you know anything along those lines?
I will leave Kay to maybe answer that question, or somebody else that wants to chime in.
Sorry, I had to put up the, that's Nikki's Jostle, by the way, as a young lady. That's my screensaver. Thank you. I don't think that folks exactly know that yet. That will be at the sort of discretion of a lot of factors having to do with how much money, what people want, also what will the code support, right? The building code has to be considered. And then questions like I was saying, I was talking with Matt Whitman, who's an architect in our neighborhood here, and he pointed out that a lot of times a rebuild of a structure can be way more costly than just scrapping the structure and then starting clean. You know, that's one other consideration we have to have. So I think that that's why we're sort of looking at two different aspects to the planning process. Like, let's get everybody's desires on one sheet of paper, and then we'll leave it up to the professionals to sort of sort that other issues out. Do you know what I'm saying? And then there's also the problems of the financial, and because we're working with an insurance claim too, the insurance policy will cover parts of rebuilding, but it doesn't cover code improvement. Like if the code is changed, the amount that it costs to bring it to current code is not covered. It's only covered to replace what was there. And then there's other considerations, which I'm not a professional, but, you know, are we allowed to be, you know, 5 feet from the sidewalk, blah, 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 you know, things like that. And so we're counting on professionals like Matt and Billy Stopper, who's also an architect on our board, and also Greg Winger, our trustee volunteer, and other folks who have more knowledge in that area to advise us on that. But I think it will be sort of a balancing act, really. I think I could say
So
with
it's wide open.
100%,
Yeah.
kind of, but I think I could say with 100% certainty that I think that the board as it exists now is committed to rebuilding the building. I mean, because that's also an option. We could take the money and walk away and donate the property to the college and be done. Like the whole thing could just go away. We would never have to volunteer again. And it would become condominiums. So, you know, there's always a range of what one can choose to do. But I think the board as it stands now is committed to rebuilding the structure in some way. But how much of that structure will look like the structure you know, and I know, I don't know yet. I really don't. And I think people want to know that, right? Like whoever is selected to do that architectural work will need to know, like, if you want to make a little exact replica of the dance hall, we need to tell that person that that's what's desired, right? If we don't care, if we want to think about what do we want to see in 100 years, you know, do we want to build a building that's up to LEED kind of environmental standards, or it could be some sort of a more of a kind of a leading edge kind of building in that sense, you know, where we've used the building as a demonstration for so many projects like the rain gardens, like the solar panels, you know, and you were talking about doing HVAC demonstration project there, as I recall, when we were so rudely interrupted. So there's the opportunity to showcase things like that in the community setting and sort of model that work as our, you know, as our city and our
Could I
nation look
comment,
towards new
Kay?
standards. Go. Yeah, please do. Thanks, Shirley.
Yeah, I think one of the places to start is not so much how do you want the building to look, but what do you want the building for? So for example, when it was built, holding large dances was, as far as I remember, pretty much the reason they had the the building and the organization. If that's not a priority, maybe there's a different kind of space that makes more sense. So I think looking at what kind, in a very general way, because you can't be specific because you're hoping to use the building for many years and programming will change during that time. But as far as you can say, do you anticipate more smaller gatherings, a really large food program, whatever it is you're thinking of doing? Seems to me that's what needs to take priority in your thinking about what the structure should look like.
Yeah, thanks. And especially as we're looking for input, that's the best kind of input I think that we can get, because I think we'll leave the designing to professionals, but the community will need to build that kind of that idea of the club, what the idea of the club would be.
I have a few thoughts. This is Dina. I don't know anything about architecture, but you were asking what our thoughts were about how the building would function. And I just think I am thinking of three things that worked well before. First is the signage, which hasn't been mentioned, but was a huge, big deal, I think, for the identity of the building. And luckily, as far as I have heard, it's still in good condition and can be reused as it was. And the other thing, I always liked the way the interior was divided into two spaces, one kind of a banquet area or a meeting area, and the other half was for a performance space for music or any other kind of performing art and dance, and for the audience to be there. And I liked how those were divided into two sections, but you could see through from one section to the other section. I always thought that worked well. I don't know anything about the upstairs or the storage spaces. Those could probably be improved, but those are two big things. One, just simple get-togethers. Maybe they involve banquets. Maybe they're just meetings. And the other thing is space for the performing arts, which, as you know, is a huge interest of mine. And I think it's crucial to have space for the performing arts, including a decent stage and a space for the audience. Those are my ideas.
I'll just jump
Thank
in.
you for that, Dina. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say thank you for that, Dina. And that's exactly the type of input we're hoping that people will bring to our input sessions, like what's meaningful for you to that space. So anyways, go ahead, Tasha.
Thanks, Nicole. I was just wondering if there have been any conversations with other groups, collectives in Highland Park and the surrounding communities to see if there's any interest in providing programming like that might bring income into the club. Like I'm thinking childcare or after school programs or things that might bring people through. Just thinking about the design, because I mean, I think the more flexible you can make the space, the better. But just wondering if any other groups have expressed interest in partnering.
I'll jump in. We haven't had those conversations yet with potential partners. I think in our community input sessions, we would be interested in hearing how many families are looking to fill a gap in childcare or after school activities, and see where the needs are. And I'm grateful you bring that up, because I think there's a lot of potential uses for the club that are different from the dance hall, banquet space, and the hall that we've rented out. I mean, rentals has been a primary source of income for the club for decades. And if we want to make the space more used by the community on a day-to-day basis. That means we need ideas of what kind of programming would be meaningful, and of the programming ideas, which of those can actually generate income, like you mentioned. So we may be thinking about a trade-off from having a space that's available to rent to something that we rent less frequently, so that we can provide more space for community to be gathering, or for other community needs to be met, such as childcare. Another idea that someone threw out was, with people working from home, is there appetite to have a space where people can get out of their house but not go too far, and still, have a little bit of the office environment without having to commute all the way into their office. So yeah, we can get lots of those ideas and then look at partnerships to meet the biggest needs of the community.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that really quick, Shannon, that in our initial discussions with 501 Commons, that was part of the discussion that we had, that we're hoping to really explore for our future programming needs, is how do we build in maybe some more partnerships that would influence the purpose, the design, and the intent of the space. So I think that's definitely in our plan.
Hi, I have a question. Hi, everybody. Hi, Nicole. Thanks for hosting and making this all happen tonight. I hear there's going to be a tent erected and possibly other things like fancy porta potties, etc., in the parking lot. Is there a timeline for when that will happen?
I would say not a hard timeline, but we just got over the big first hurdle, which is actually getting approval to redirect that grant and start spending. So while we've done a lot of information gathering and research on what we think we want to purchase, we haven't really been able to take action on anything yet. I think we just got approval last week. And so we've been focusing on preparing for this town hall this week, but that will be kind of some of our immediate next steps. Will be working on building out that plan. We have a rough design that we're working towards, and we need to, we'll of course refine that a little bit, and we'll have to learn what is the lead time on some of these things that we want to do, like one of the key things we have to do is bring in facilities, right? So we have restroom facilities that are there, and trying to get that in before, with some plumbing, before the winter would be a good idea. So we're hopeful that we'll get, we can have some type of space, in the next couple months. Going into the winter is a little challenging, but we don't anticipate that part taking 6 months or something like that. The intent is to find a way to quickly bring some type of outdoor space such that we can continue to offer some form of gathering. So hopefully in the next couple months we'll have a more a better understanding of when we can stand that up.
Thanks, Nicole.
That was kind of a non-answer answer. Sorry about that, but that's the best that we know. Any other questions?
There's a question in the chat. Oh, there's a question in the chat about the zoning, and I don't know that, but Kay, do you know what we're currently zoned as and what our limitations are there?
Sorry, we're zoned LR2. That's what we are, low-rise residential. So if you look around, that would be the condominiums to the east on Holden, or anything like that. Any apartment building that's like 2 stories plus, or probably 2 or 3 stories now with upzoning. But we are not zoned commercial. We are grandfathered in, I believe, as a community hall. So whatever usage a community hall would get. I think these are issues that our design professionals will be looking into and trying to come to some understanding of. I know we have the board in past iterations has looked into the idea of having a coffee shop in there. But that's a commercial use and we would have to apply for zoning change as well for that. So I think Catherine in the chat also made a good comment, you know, that any usages that we contemplate may have code implications beyond what we're currently set up for, as well as staffing something, right? So we've been able to get by with a certain type of staffing, minimal, I would say it's called. And but you know, if you start having a lot more things and you need staff, you need money for staff, you know, and then it's kind of going to go on from there. So all those things are, I think, part of the operational thinking that we'll be doing with the 501 Commons kind of planning work, right? Because you can't build something that you can't staff. You know, that's not sustainable. It won't work for the neighborhood. I mean, we've always in the past been really, really simple, kept it very simple, straightforward. It's one of the reasons that the building is still in the public domain, actually, is because it didn't get too complicated and it, you know, was able to be manageable for people. But, you know, having a partnership is great. I think in a meeting that we were in, someone brought up the idea of working with this something called ARC, which helps put on late night teen events around the city, you know, where the staffing came with the program, you know, stuff like that. That would be where I would think I would go with something like that. The program would have to own the staffing component, not the building, I think, budgetarily. But that's just, you know, we're just talking here. This is just a conversation. Yeah.
I'm curious if anyone has got questions about something we didn't talk about at all. Anybody have any other questions?
Rhonda, what did you just say?
I said, I was just curious if anybody had any questions. I mean, these are the things that the board and I helped, you know, put together to present, but I'm just curious, did we talk about all the things that you were looking forward to hearing about? Was there anything else that was of interest to you?
One thing that wasn't quite clear to me was the timing for the capital campaign.
Yeah, so we're thinking that we will be able to price out what it'll cost to build the design that we need to get to the design phase so that we have a pretty concrete dollar amount that we're striving to achieve, to reach. So once we get to design and then we've costed out that design, and then we can see kind of where the funding is that we currently have, what the gap is. So that, I think that pushes our capital campaign out to potentially February, just depending on how quickly we get through that design process, and we can get a really clear number of how much money we're going to need to build.
Thanks.
Sure, thanks for asking.
All right, any other questions or thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. So what if you get your design team going in there and you find that between permits and what the city wants, things are not like falling in place? Is it totally off the table to look for a different building in the Highland Park area? Or is that still something that could be opened?
That's a good question, Judith, and it's something we actually did talk about, right? As we explored what are all our options given our current situation, what are all the options, and some of the ideas that came up. This was during our rebuild workshop. Is what would it look like to maybe take the money and go find, you know, different location if it just really does not make dollars and cents to rebuild in the current spot. And then we talked about what does it look like to maybe level the whole building and completely build a brand new structure, different materials, et cetera. all the way down to what does it take to rebuild it just as it is, because we really have an emotional attachment to it, like me. But anyways, we've kind of explored all those options, and where we landed on is no idea is off the table. And we're hoping as we go into those community input sessions that we frame, we would like people to bring, kind of their ideas. And I'm sure there's things we haven't thought about on what's possible. And we'll collect all those ideas and kind of assess what is the best path forward. And our goal is to get community input on what they think the function and the purpose of the building should be for, and then that will influence the design. And then we'll try to narrow it down to a couple options for our voting membership to vote on, and community input again, and our voting membership to vote on. And so one of those options that comes out of the entire process very well could be, take the money, go buy something else. So I think we just have to wait and let that process kind of play out, and it may be something that emerges as a good idea.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else that maybe that we haven't heard from, or don't be shy. All right, so I guess in closing, I'll just go ahead and close us out. Just really appreciate everybody's time to join our town hall today. We would love feedback on, feel free to reach out and share additional ideas, questions that you might have, send them to our Gmail account. We manage that by committee, so we try to be responsive. Please look for those input sessions that we will be setting up here shortly. And if you're not getting our newsletters, you can sign up for that so you can stay up on the latest information on what we're working on. We're also active on social media with Odetta and the rest of some others on our board posting. So just really appreciate everyone's time today here. And again, just the overwhelming show of support for the club. And I really appreciate what Shannon said. It's not our club, it's collectively our club. And so we're looking forward to rebuilding. Thanks everyone, and have a good rest of your day or good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Night.
Thank you. Good night.
Night all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Someone stop the
Thanks,
recording
everyone.
button here.
That was great.
Thanks for throwing that one comment in at the end too. I appreciated that. I probably am the only one to read it. But I hope you were able to get some information out of this.
Did you guys want to stick around and chat, or are we done?
I just want to say, I thought you guys did a great job. You really did.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Barry.
particularly your presentation today, that was fantastic, but
Isn't it cool to see how it changed over time, right?
it is.
Yeah.
Teachers just.
There's the real Kirk.
All right. Sorry.
Thank you
No worries.
so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for
I
coming.
don't look like that
Yeah,
picture
good
anymore.
night.
Yeah, you guys did great. That was so amazing. I just want to say thank you from my bottom of my heart. It's really great. Oh, and Baxter too. He says thank you.
Aw, thanks, Baxter.
Anyways, thanks guys. I look forward to finding out about how I can pitch in and help out.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Bye.
coming.
Bye. Thank
You
you.
guys, I've been in silent mode. Wanted to let you
Yeah,
know
you're
I
stealth
really
mode over
appreciate
there.
it. Huh?
What?
My computer camera is on the fritz. I don't know what's going on. It's like I'm looking at it anyway. That's why it was off screen. Thank you very much. It was a really great presentation.
Thank you.
excellent.
Thanks for
Thank you, Bill.
chiming in.
Oh, can I say something? This is Dina.
Please.
Hi, Dina.
Hi, Dina.
I just wanted to remind you all that I have thousands of pictures and videos from the past 10 or more years, and just ask if you ever want any part of that, or if you want some new ones. It might really be helpful as we are going through this process of showing the community what's going on. And yeah, so just ask me.
Awesome. You know, Dina, I thought of you a lot. And I'm so thankful that you have all those in a digital format, you know, that are off-site, you know, so we don't,
Yeah,
you know, right now I've been focused on saving the old stuff, but knowing that you, and then between you and Peter, there's a lot of material that's just out there in the cloud, kind of safely hanging out. That just is like something I can put in the back of my mind. I know it's there. It's so great. I can't thank you enough for all that you've done, and that you've also done such a tremendous job of keeping it in order, because that's a huge task too.
And I will continue to do so if you ever need me to continue documenting.
Excellent.
Great, yeah.
It's really fun. Thank you.
Good night, folks. Take care.
Nice to see you, Bill. Thanks so much for coming.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Thank you all for all you're doing.
We're
Thank you.
trying.
Thanks,
Can't
Bill.
do without you.
All right, I'm signing off. Thanks, everybody.
Wait. Before you
Great
sign
work.
off,
Wait,
can
somebody
we do
wants
a quick,
to say something.
a quick debrief? Not really a debrief. I'm actually just thinking that
Do we want to record it?
we can turn off the recording.
No, you should have the recording turned off now.